Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie, and I want to welcome everyone either back for Digital Day if you were here for our earlier sessions, or thank you for being here for anyone who is just joining us. Just to make sure everybody is in the know, in case you weren't here for our earlier presentations, Digital Day is one of two business series that we do each year. The Spring Digital Day is focused more on technology and ways that you can enhance your business using technology, social media, etc. And then, of course, we have our Fall Business Day called Get Down to Business, which is a little more hands-on day-to-day business tips for growing your business. So hope you'll join us for that one in the fall. A reminder that all of our sessions today are videotaped and they will be on our YouTube channel. We'll send out an email in a couple of weeks once all of those are uploaded so you can check anything out in case you missed it, or if there are any tidbits from today's presentations and you want to go back and see those to catch whatever you missed, you'll be able to rewatch everything. It is Digital Day, so we have to have some fun on social media. Use our hashtag Digital Day at ADAC and then tag us with our handle at ADAC Atlanta. We want to see all the fun that we're having. So we're having fun too. So make sure that you tag us on social media. I want to thank, actually, a couple other things. We have two presentations this afternoon. It'll be this one, and then we'll take a 15-minute break, and we'll have the last presentation. But that's not the last fun of the day. We are rounding out Digital Day with a new sip and stroll with ASID. So I hope that you will join us for that fun later this afternoon. But I would like to thank all of our sponsors today, Business of Home, Kitchen and Bath Business Magazine, and ASID. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Kendall with KS Creative. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited about this group today, mainly because they're some of my favorite industry people, but also they do overlap in real life on projects. So I thought, this is a great team to kind of come together and talk about real life solutions to problems, what technology they're incorporating. Again, I'm Kendall Stowell. I have a boutique marketing firm called KS Creative. Been doing it about 10 years and just help clients with social media marketing, PR, all of that. And I'm going to do quick introductions to everybody and then we'll get started. This is Brantley Snipes. She is out of Mississippi and is an overachiever with her 3 separate businesses. Landscape Design, which is BSLD. She just launched Half Moon Living, which is her actual install business with pools, outdoor patios, etc. And she actually has a brick and mortar in downtown Greenwood called Osmanthus Market. We have Evan Crowe of Crowe Built Homes. He and his wife founded Crowe Built almost a decade ago. He is a residential home builder around Metro Atlanta, but puts an emphasis on customer care, meaning, problem solving quickly, actually listen to the clients, which, as we know, is not always the case. And they are also a part of the Southern Living Custom Builder Program. Next, we have architect Frances Zook. She is a licensed architect working all over the Southeast, as well as having offices in Atlanta and Oxford, where she lives with her husband now. And last but not least, we have Beth Meyer of Beth Meyer Designs. She has been an interior designer in the Atlanta area for 3 decades now and works with her daughter Abby, growing the business and a great, cute team that is over there. And I'm grateful to have connected with her through all these people. And with that, I think we will get started on our questions. And we will have time for Q&A at the end for anything we didn't clarify or cover. I'm going to start with the architects because it does begin with the drawings and the idea. So this is kind of for both of you. Frances, maybe you can start this one off and pass it back and forth. When you begin working on a new design, what are your initial steps and how has technology advanced recently to help you move faster? Additionally, how does your kind of, approach change if you are starting the project as the first member or joining an existing team that is already created?
Well, certainly what I design is typically the house itself or the building itself, but really what has to be studied is the site. So you always go to Google Maps. I mean, if you don't go to Google Maps, you're not normal these days. And then I really try to evaluate what is the site and what is surrounding it and what is in the neighborhood and what is the flavor. And once I've done that, hopefully I'll have on my team a landscape architect. So, you know, normally I would say, okay, Brantley, take a look.
Well, and I think that's important too, is that we get not only like aerial images, and there's some awesome like drone technology out there and actual drone pilots. You have to be really careful, or the FAA will come after you if you get too close.
Which has
drone,
happened
which
to
has
us.
happened.
Yes.
You know, so there's some really awesome imagery you can do with that, and then also just really getting an actual survey, getting an engineer out there, knowing your lot lines, knowing your topo, so that you can call in your landscape architect at the front of the project instead of the end of the project. I consider myself the stepchild of this awesome team, because everybody gets really excited about the plans and the building and what's going on the inside and the paint colors, and then you get to the landscape and they're like, I got $10,000, what can you do with that? You know, and you're like, if you would have just brought me in at the beginning, we could have really talked about it and like worked with the architect on that.
Well, and I think that's the thing we really want to hit home this whole talk is, like you're talking about the drone technology, how technology, if you really use it and start with it with the correct team, it feels like you're spending a lot of money up front and investing a lot in the beginning, but it really will save you and your clients time and money.
I don't have it with me. I didn't think to do this as a show and tell. I have the world's largest iPad. Everyone makes fun of me, but I decided at age 32 that I was done with printers and blood pressure and having to print stuff off and be mobile. And so I highly recommend just and get the biggest one that you can, because then you can make edits on site, you can change, you can access folders. I've sketched stuff, screenshot it, and text it to Frances on site so that it's keeping the flow moving on that. So bigger is better in the iPad world.
Anything to follow up with that, Frances, as far as just like when you're first beginning?
Well, also something very important that, you know, depending on what community you are serving, you have to understand the rules, because there's rules. There's tree rules, there's city rules, there's water rules, water rules all the time. And you just kind of have to understand what are your boundaries. Very important.
That's a great point. Again, cost saving, because those are costly mistakes if you continue down that road without knowing what you're getting into. And with that, we're going to go to Evan. When you get your hands on the architectural drawing as a builder, what aspects of the plan and communication make your job easier, and how can the architects support you in streamlining this process? And again, I definitely want to talk about the 3D imaging and get to how all of that overlaps. But, you know, from the beginning, what makes your job easier in that communication, and how can Frances and Brantley help you get started?
Well, ideally, we're involved in that phase.
Yeah.
You know, ideally, when our client's putting a team together, they understand the value in the team, that from the beginning, if Beth is involved and Frances is involved and Brantley's involved, we're all working together to understand, like, hey, Frances, that looks beautiful, but their investment level is here. I can't make that happen. Or,
fair.
you know, or the same goes all the way down the line. But ideally, it's in the beginning. You know, what can they provide? I mean, obviously, I want everything. I want more. So all the details that we can get, whether it's what materials we're looking at. Hey, this exterior column, is this just going to be painted with hardy, or is this a solid cypress column? Those are two very different things and affect budget very differently, and then, you know, everything trickles down to the rest of the materials on the home. So all the information we can get, the better. But again, ideally, that team is getting put together very early, so we can all work together as this is drawn. If Frances has a phenomenal idea and she's looking at me as, hey, how can we make this work?
And is it
construction-wise,
is it in the
gonna
budget?
work? Like, can you do this waterproofing?
Right.
You know.
And are we going to have to put a big wall through the middle of this? You know, because ideally we want to do a big vaulted ceiling, and we have points of load.
Yeah, and is that in the budget?
Yeah, and
always the question.
The biggest thing just comes back to respecting each other.
Yeah.
if the architect and designer know that we respect what they're doing and they respect what we're doing, then we can communicate easily. And if I come to them with an issue, instead of them just like brushing it off, like he's being lazy, he doesn't want to do it. You know, if they
Right.
respect what we do and understand that, hey, I want to match your intent here, but how can we adjust this to make this actually work on
And
something?
that's a good point. And back to what you were saying, you're left with $10,000 at the end of a project. I think the respect factor, like every single person in the project is important. What does each person's budget look like? You know, if you're going to make a design decision that is going to take from her budget, where can we give on that to make it even? Because yeah, I do think there's some give and take, and sometimes a lot more take, and it goes, respect is a great point. And that kind of leads us to you, Beth. You know, when does Beth come in? I mean, I know you say from the beginning, but like when you start the building process, when do you need Beth, and what does that first couple meetings look like, and what technology and kind of information, so to speak, from her do you need up front to start and make it a smooth process?
You're asking me or?
But
Okay.
Do you want to go
kind of a
first?
two-part.
Do you want to go
Well,
first?
it's kind of interesting. We really encourage everybody, if a client comes to me about a project, sometimes they will ask about an architect, or they've gotten started with the architect, and then I like to come on at that time with the architect. I mean, Frances may have a good base going, and then I can come in with just another fresh set of eyes and throw this idea out. And then, you know, just from there, like you said, Evan, like we just encourage everybody to build your team at the very beginning. And I'm all about teamwork and collaboration. And I think it's so important to respect each other's job, and let's help each other out, because you're going to be together through the whole project. So definitely teamwork, and then
And
budgets.
really understanding who is the client, who are we
Yes.
serving here? And that, a lot of times the interior designer, a lot of you here know this, really know what the ultimate feeling is for this whole space, especially with materials and that, you know, lead from countertops to fabric to whatever. I think that, you know, if we can kind of see the big picture.
And then I think the builder can come in and say, you know, they've had already discussions with the homeowners about budget. So then, you know, Evan can say, we can build this for X amount of square footage, you know, dollar amount per square footage. And then that helps guide me to the next steps of what I would be doing to give to Evan.
And we've always got to have that conversation with the designer as far as, hey, what is in your scope and what is in mine? Am I buying the light fixtures, or are you buying the light fixtures? Because every designer does it slightly different. You know, how many, and the same with the architect, how many elevation drawings are we going to get here? You know, what have you budgeted with that client? So when I get to this phase of construction, am I going to have a very specific drawing that I need to match, or is this something we're working out on site? And either way is always fine. It's just making sure the expectations are set, communicated well. When you mentioned technology, one thing that Beth's team has done great is not just sending me 4,000 individual files that I'm supposed to keep up with and build off of. And like we get to a certain detail of the home and it's, you know, hey, do we have a drawing for this? You know, and like looking through, you know, you're looking back through emails or this or that. I mean, we always try and, as soon as we get a file, it's getting saved in Dropbox.
Yeah, I was going to say, what does that look like? Because I'm laughing because it really is such a nightmare searching for an image on an email. I mean,
So for my team, Dropbox is where files are staying. So I've got, you know, a folder for each home, a folder for plans and proposals and design, and then inside those folders, they're broken down even further with, you know, whether it's cabinet drawings or tile or whatever. But any designers, I would say, invest in a good software or system that you can make it very user-friendly. Because if you hand a builder a notebook this thick with just a bunch of individual pages that don't really go together, they're probably going to just sit it over there and go do their thing.
right.
You know, because that, to me, that doesn't that's not teamwork there. You're not making it easy on the builder. And I'm not saying it needs to be just handed to us on a platter. We've got to do our due diligence and do our work as well.
But it also makes you go quicker on the project.
Right, and it makes me, like, my purpose is always to match the designer and architect and landscape architect's intent. You know, so like we said, sometimes it doesn't work, and that's when we make the phone calls and say, hey, we need to adjust this.
Which actually brings me to a good point, because I know, because I work with a lot of you, you get that call from the builder, like you call the designer, the architect, the landscape, hey, we've got a problem. What does that look like, problem solving? I mean, because sometimes it's cost, sometimes it's spatial, sometimes it's this material isn't available. I mean,
Well, from a builder, the most important thing there is that's why you maintain a good relationship. Because if I'm a
so you're not
jerk-
scared to pick up the
Right.
phone?
Well, if I'm
Well,
a
that's
jerk,
you pop a Xanax and take a deep breath, call the contractor, and you're like,
Yeah.
well.
like if I'm the builder that's rude to the designer or architect and they see me calling,
they're-
no,
yeah.
you know,
Right.
not
I
answering
don't want
that.
to. You're so right. Like,
But like
Because you-
FaceTime,
And you want to do teamwork so that the client doesn't have to be worried. You don't really want to introduce something to the client until you absolutely have to.
like that's the last case
Yeah.
scenario type situation.
like
I
know you
always say
mentioned-
problem solve before you ever tell the client you have a problem.
Yep.
So when you come to the client.
So basically,
With the
have the
solution.
solution.
You come
Yeah,
to them
yeah,
with a solution.
yeah.
You don't ever really have a
Or
problem.
options.
You have a new idea.
Yes, we
A
call them
happy
happy
accident.
Happy
accidents.
accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, the idea is you want your clients to have an enjoyable experience. And so any problem that you can keep off of their plate and make it a good experience, and you come to them and say, okay, we had a happy accident here, and this is the solutions, and
Here are your options of solutions.
Yes, and it usually always works out. But the whole goal is for the clients to just truly enjoy. They're building a luxury home, make it a luxury experience.
Right. Yeah.
And so yeah.
And so this kind of takes us, it takes years to finish these projects sometimes. I mean, the amount of money and time, and again, the client experience is so important, because why would you recommend a builder, a designer, an architect if you had a nightmare experience? And that is our bread and butter, is word of mouth. So what does that look like for you, Evan, like that communication with clients? Because it is not a fun call to pick up that phone and call a client. What have you implemented in your business that helps you communicate with your client without stressing them out, without adding more time to the project, like getting those solutions quickly?
So, well, most importantly is documentation there. If you have that phone call, follow it up with an email, because then there's no finger pointing down the road. But generally, we run into an issue, let's say it's on a job with Frances, I'll call her, hey, can you jump on FaceTime and let's work through this? Or we'll use Bluebeam, a software, to mark up the plans and say, hey, this
Say
is
the software again?
Bluebeam. It's
Okay.
like Bluebeam Review, and it's just it's a PDF viewer that allows you to measure, mark up,
Okay.
all of that good stuff. And so a lot of times I'll already have it marked up and send it to Frances and say, hey, I need you to look at this area. Can we jump on FaceTime? So we try and problem solve, find that solution, and then generally I'll send an email or a text or something with what we're thinking, and then call them to explain, hey, this is what we ran into. I've spoken to Beth and Frances and Brantley, and this
You've
is,
already done the homework and the
Right.
solution.
Right.
Yeah.
and this is what we're proposing. What do you think? So another thing we do is, a lot of people know Buildertrend, the software. Daily logs on there.
Because I think a
is
lot of people
phenomenal.
don't know about this. Can you kind of just give us an overview of this? Because I think this is so important for any builder, for sure, but also just for any kind of client communication on a project.
So like we were saying, client experience, transparency to me, and trust is what builds all of that. And Buildertrend allows us to do that. So we use our the scheduling feature, where they can look at the schedule whenever they want. Any bill we get goes in there. They can pull it up and look at their bills, their estimate, their job costing budget.
And you have
It's all
subs
right.
uploading photos too, right? Like for
Well,
progress.
my guys on site, that's what they call a daily log. So
Yeah.
our builders on site will, maybe it's not every day, maybe it's 3 days a week.
Yeah.
We just snap a couple pictures, put a quick description of what we've done. That way, the homeowner, depending on their, how they have notifications set up, they may just, boom, they get a notification
Yeah.
on their phone. Oh, this is what was done today. So they're not that we don't want to talk to our clients, but they're not calling me all the time saying, hey, what are we doing today? Like, oh, I already see what you've done.
Well, and you have to remember, they're doing luxury homes, they're building second and third homes, so this might be in Highlands,
Yes.
and they live in Atlanta, so they're able to see the progress again without bugging the entire team about what's going on. I think that's amazing. And one more question for you. Can we kind of talk about that 3D feature?
Sure.
Because I did not know about this technology, and I'll try and point it out when we see it on the slideshow, but this is a very cool feature that I think helps all of you.
So it kind of relates back to just using something simple as QR codes. Like, there's nothing that can replace the builder being on site working with their subs. But when we have technology as cheap and easy as making a QR code for the plans, for the tile layout, for whatever information we think our trades may need, print it 20 times, put it all over the house. But one thing we add is a 3D scan, which you'll see going through this slide.
I'll keep an eye out for it.
And it's something we'll do right before we insulate, just so we can see every wire, every pipe, everything in the house. Yesterday, we're installing an air bath, and we had the conduit in for the controller. So we pull up the scan, and we can measure on it and say, hey, we need to cut the hole right here to get to our conduit to put our controller.
There's no guessing.
You know, one of the projects on here that we worked with them on, the homeowner decided to add some art, and we were like, man, it would really be nice with an art light right there.
Yeah.
Well, how do we get the power to that light? And we can pull up our scan and see, okay, we can do this and have no holes to fix. Or maybe we have to cut one hole instead of just blindly exploring cutting the house apart.
And possibly messing up something in the
Or
process.
redesign.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Frances, question for you. Challenges are inevitable for sure, and we've kind of already talked about it, but just from an architecture standpoint, do you have any tools and technology that you can quickly, mark up a plan, fix something for the builder or the designer to quickly move on and just kind of edit those very specific needs quickly?
Well, a lot of times, like Brantley was saying, when you have an iPad, you can mark it up very quickly and shoot it out because you basically can text from your iPad. That's a quick solution. Certainly, we can go back to our CAD drawings and improve what we need for that situation. We typically don't completely send out a new set of drawings, but we send out sketch drawings, and that's very easy to do.
And what
we
did
try
that,
to address that as quickly as
I was
possible.
going to say, what did that look like 15 years ago?
Oh, it was erasing with the racers, and I mean, we were doing CAD back then, but now it's much more.
Well, I just think that quick communication.
Yeah. And his Bluebeam program is very helpful because he will just send it. Even if I'm like in a grocery store and I can look at that real quick, I can see, oh, here's what we need to address and move forward. And and certainly like in site situations, he would be doing the same thing either to the landscape architect or the architect, and actually all of us, because a lot of the interior finishes and a lot of openings and whatnot, it's important.
Okay, Brantley, this kind of leads me to you.
Okay.
What information or resources from the team help you get started earlier on the landscape? Obviously, again, stepchild,
Right.
last on
last.
the list. If you do not consciously budget for the landscape, but you also don't want to wait till the end to get started. I mean,
Right.
you want that CO, you want to get in, the clients want their landscape to look done as quickly as possible.
Sure.
So what do you kind of need from them early on, and what makes your job easier to get started?
The house plan.
Yeah.
We're working with an awesome family right now, and they were so excited, and they were like, we're gonna plant trees. And we were like, cool, where are you gonna put the house? And they were like, we don't have our house plan yet. And you're like, okay, let's back up, let's get
Cart
our house
before the
plan.
horse a little bit.
Let's work through this. So, when we get the house plan, when we meet with the architect, we get the vision, We've done a really cool project with another interior designer that we got to play with like what the porch tiles started to look like, so we could keep it moving so that as soon as the contractor got out of there, we could move in, because I also refuse.
Get out of my way.
Right. We also refuse to do any landscape until you are absolutely done with the project, just because, no offense, but
No,
y'all run over everything.
Tear it apart, yeah.
I'm sure you don't, but a lot of the ones we have to
no,
work
we
with
do,
in
yeah.
Mississippi do, so
Except-
we're always like, so that way we've got everything planned, so, I'll
Gathering
take the survey,
materials.
I'll take the architect's plan, we'll get it on site, we'll get the driveway, we'll move through the hardscape pretty quickly, talking to the architect, looking at the budget, seeing if we need to tie it in with the interiors anyway. Hardscape's ready to go, and then we'll roll into the actual like softscaping, the landscapes, the plans like that. But meanwhile, we really need to know, again, what the client's vision is, what we're trying to achieve, how we're gonna connect the outdoor space with the awesome indoor spaces and make the best use of everyone's time and budget and lot.
If you get treated like the stepchild in the Atlanta market, the builder is gonna run into a lot of issues
Yeah.
with, especially all the
Yeah,
stormwater.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Do talk about this. I know this is like unfun, not pretty things to talk about when it comes to this relationship, but it's so important. And from a budget standpoint, it's probably the most important.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't realize, the amount of work that you have to put into the dirt and the site prep, and that's part of getting the house going, and so.
So, I mean, depending on the landscape firm, some may want to handle the driveway. Most of the time, the builder is handling the driveway and hardscapes.
I love a driveway.
But then all of your gutter piping, all of your stormwater management has got to be in place before you pour that concrete.
Right.
You've got to have that plan. And now, so many areas around Metro Atlanta, I mean, you may have $100,000 buried in the backyard to store stormwater.
Which was
and that's the
news to
unpretty
me.
money that you're referring
Right.
to.
Yeah.
But we've got a plan for that. It's got to be on the civil engineer's plan, and it's got to coordinate with the landscape architect's plan on how are we getting all of our water to that system.
And how are we getting it under driveways, and where are the sleeves going? And, we've had to come in and cut out brand new concrete walks because no sleeves were in, and we've had to bore under. And
Yeah.
that's a couple of grand at the end of the project. And had we known that at the beginning, we could have handled it and saved all kinds of money.
And Brantley, can you talk really quickly about, you were telling me a story recently about how they thought they knew where they were putting their house when you
Yeah.
brought up an entirely different idea because of your knowledge. Had they brought you on truly
yeah.
from the beginning, they probably could have saved quite a bit.
Oh, they were about to do $500,000 in dirt work to put the house where they had initially thought, because that's where the best view of the lake was. Well, we flipped the script and said, well, your view of the lake is really cool up here at the top of the hill, and you can overlook it. And so making best use of budget, getting the site plan, having the survey, knowing where the contours were, where the sight lines were, kind of rolling in with that. So, yeah.
And again, and I kind of want to loop this back to you because we're talking about unfun money right now. You're the fun money, right?
We like to be.
They're the candy store, and I have to be the dentist. Tell
Totally.
them where the cavities are.
I mean, this is what you wanted. So
That's one month.
how, because you really, I mean, you are the one, probably have the closest relationship to the clients, the most intimate, as far as just talking all the time, especially towards the end of the project when you're just getting so fatigued and decision fatigued. But when you hear from the landscape architect that there's going to be a 6-figure water storage, and that's taking out of your budget now, how do you kind of manage that relationship and maybe turn it into a positive?
She encourages them to find more.
No, we have changed a lot of our processes in the last,
And so this is great because I want to talk about you. She is one of the most organized designers I've ever been around. And yes, it is a testament to her team as well, but I do want you to talk about your
do
processes.
what I'm told to do.
Well,
When.
it's good to have handlers.
Yes, they're great. Well, we really have streamlined. We've worked really hard in the last several years. I feel like these projects, and I've been in this a long time, and so I've seen these projects, the money, the investment amount just
Yeah.
it's just enormous. And so I too I love all the pretty finishes in a home, but I want to furnish the home and finish the home. So one of the things that we have done in our process, it's probably the first thing we do, is talk budget. And we talk budget with
All of you.
all of us, like, I mean, with the homeowner. And so I also, you know what you want to build at a square foot, and that probably includes Brantley in there and all that. And then that guides me in where we need to choose our selections, but even for the furnishings up front, like it's right there at the letter of agreement time. We now do an estimate of what we what we think it's going to cost to completely decorate, we do, turnkey, so china, crystal, whatever we need, whatever it's going to be to fill this home, and they have a great reveal. We try to give them that up front because people just don't know what it's going to cost. And even 4 years ago, it's substantially more today than it was 4 years ago. So I'm surprised myself, but we try to have those conversations right up front. I say, this is my estimated design fees, and this is our estimated furnishings, decorating, window treatments, everything. We spell it out, but we have all that conversation up front. So hopefully, the project always grows and the scope will grow, but hopefully that money discussion is all done up front.
Right.
So,
Unless it's a remodel that just keeps growing.
Right.
yeah, which that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
Some kind of historical restoration. You're going to come into a lot of
Yes.
problems. But I want you to talk to, and you guys actually posted a great Instagram reel the other day about this. I saw, talk about your steps. Once all the planning's done, you know what you're getting into, you've had the budget conversation, what do you and your team, the hand-holding and the communication with your clients as far as that organization and systems you have in place, what does that look like through the phase of the project?
Well, we have 4 phases. We do the concept, then we do detailed design, procurement management, and then turnkey reveal. So our concept phase, which actually hopefully helps Evan a lot up front, is we try, once we get plans from our architect or Frances, we do all of our hard finishes, all of our tile selections, countertop, our inspirations for cabinetry, walls.
Even exterior materials.
Yep, we get all of the overall concepts, some loose lighting directions. We do some mood boards. This is how we see this house going. This is where we'd like to see it. And so we present all of that. We will have a large presentation with every tile, every faucet finish, every hard finish. And hopefully that goes really well, and there's not that many edits from there. There might be, but the goal is we want to have that concept phase totally complete before he moves dirt.
Okay.
So that makes the process
That's an ideal situation.
goes that fast. It helps him, but also it helps him if he's got to fine-tune his budget, or he may have to say, you need to readdress that.
Or if you're going to
Right.
come in on a second floor and say that you want this giant stone tub with solid marble slab shower
Gotta
walls,
know that, yeah.
structural's got to go back and look at that
We
and
have
make
a
sure we can
project
do
now that we had a gorgeous stone tub. The foundation is
Those are
done.
very heavy.
Yes, they had to crane it in. It's up at Lake
Yep.
Raven. They have to crane it in. So the foundation is in. It hasn't even framed, but they have to crane it in because
To fit
they
it in the
can't-
house.
to get it in the house. So you have to know those things.
Talk about
up
problem
front.
solving.
Yeah.
That would have
up
been a
front.
nightmare.
But that has been super helpful to make the process go faster and just streamline, and we use several different technologies with that. We use Canva, we use Design Spec, CAD.
Yeah,
Look over there. What else
all
do we
the
use? A lot of CAD and
And spreadsheets.
Yes, and spreadsheets. And we put everything in a Google Drive, and then we send it to the builder.
So you all are Google Drive, not Dropbox. Is that
We're
kind
not
of your?
Dropbox,
I
we're
gotcha.
Google Drive. But
I think you got to find what you
it
like in
just
that
works
regard.
for us. It just works for us.
Yeah.
You know, so we send that, and then we edit it, or it updates with the newest date
Yeah.
to it. So
I think, you know, this, talking to you all, I hope it's, you know, clear that this is why this works so well and why it goes so smoothly. But that's not always the case, right? So I'm going to kind of ask each one of you, I'll start right here. Can you think in the past year or two, a critical situation where technology and communication tools you had in place played a key role in resolving an issue efficiently? Like that you were able, and you can think, okay, this is why gosh, that was so much easier than that would have been if I didn't have this, or this was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things, it's as simple as having like a SketchUp mock-up model that we use to convey an outdoor kitchen. And I had some older clients that just could not grasp two-dimensional drawings and could not grasp, you know, how the brick pattern was going to step and what the stairs were going to do and how the counter was going to work. And so, you know, we've started going it up a little bit and shifted more into, and I'm having to hire some young ones to do this, using Revit and Lumion and those type imaging aspects. But, you know, getting something into like model form probably saved our life on that, because they finally went, oh, okay, now I see why the budget is this much. Now I'm seeing how much work has to go into it. Like, this makes sense. And so that saved us.
And I do kind of want to jump into these 3D renderings a little bit, because I do have some clients that have showed me what is possible, and then just the like before and after almost looking identical. So anybody can take this, like, I mean, how has that helped you conceptually conveying these things to clients?
well, it's really helped us. I mean, we have ventured into the renderings, and we actually outsource ours. They're beyond Revit, and what you're speaking about, they look so real. So we outsource. We use Duke renders. We love them.
Shout out.
Huh?
A little shout out.
A little
to the
shout out,
company.
because they are wonderful and they are worth it. I mean, it's a team effort. We're giving them the information. We're working with them through the modeling, but they're actually putting the texture on and all of that. But it's a great feature, because hopefully it avoids a problem, because we've looked at it before and thought, oh, maybe we should make those light fixtures a little better or bigger, or let's do 3 instead of 2. But huge, you know, hopefully this avoids a problem too, is it helps you sell your project, because the client gets to see the whole project done, and they're spending a boatload of money, and they're just trusting you that looks good with that, but then they can see the rendering and go, huh.
Well, we often
And they'll
forget,
spend it.
We often forget
Yeah.
that they don't do what we do every day.
Yeah.
I
Right.
agree. I think it's a huge,
Yeah.
huge
And that's-
But
difference
it's a
in our
selling,
brains.
the rendering is a huge selling feature for us.
That's something we have to push hard
Gives
on.
them confidence in what they're investing in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
Evan,
to
you talk about that a little bit.
we have to push hard with our trades that you may be able to read this set of plans perfectly because this is what you do every day,
Right.
but our clients don't, and they may not totally understand. But what they do know is this set of papers they decided to spend $3 million on. And you, whether it works or not, you can't make a change without somebody's approval. You know, and that's
Not
the
your
hardest
money.
thing. And that's where the renderings come in, is if I can show Mr. Trim Carpenter that, hey, this is what this is going to look like in the end, then they may notice that, oh, okay, well, the way that the architect has it drawn is not going to perfectly work with what the designer is wanting to do with this tile to then all tie in with this rendering. And it's not that anybody was wrong or anything. It's just it helps us then see, oh, we really need to have, you know, this area for this trim detail to stop. So, hey, can you go back to the designer and figure this out? And we're running into that right now on a project where that's an amazing tile. How do we stop that tile based on this other finish? And
What's our transition piece? And
right, and it's when we go back to those spreadsheets and those files, if you're not adding something to it after every house that you finish, you're doing yourself a disservice. There's always something to learn.
So
on
basically
every
correcting
house.
what you did, what you
Nothing is
thought
the
was going to
same.
happen, and then correcting it to
Well,
what
just
actually
and it may
happened.
just be that hey, our spreadsheet for our tile has the tile and the grout color and the this and the that, but we forgot. Like maybe we need to add a line in there for what the thresholds are, or
Or
you
try
know,
to add
just-
a more detail, like
Yeah.
the questions that come up. I want to eliminate too many questions.
hey, I'm right here and I need this answer right now.
Yeah.
What is
Right.
it? That,
Yeah,
you
so we
know.
try to put it
And that's
on
on the
everything.
builder too. We have to be looking ahead.
So
to
it's
make sure
not
that we
just
have-
for selling pretty things. It's
Well, and
solving
I wanna
problems ahead
say,
of time.
One thing we use 3D rendering for that is helpful is, for example, we were designing an outside steel stair in a back courtyard at a project here in Atlanta. And by modeling the steel stair and understanding how, I wanted to run the back of the stringer, sending that to the engineer helps me, because that way the engineer understands where I'm trying to go and he's trying to go, because he has to size these elements for me, and that has been extremely helpful.
So functionality, problem solving, and
Yeah,
And it doesn't always work that great if you're doing landscape renderings. Just, it works great on built structures, but I have had a client when I played with it a few years ago doing modeling. Now, because plants grow and they change and they look different throughout the year, and your little model thing is not going to have.
They're
what
gonna
that
come
plant-
back and
they
say,
came back,
"This
they
doesn't
went,
look like
this doesn't
this."
look anything like what you said it would." And I was like,
Your rendering was June. We
right,
planted
we
in January.
planted it in January.
Right.
Of course it doesn't look
maybe that's
anything
what
like
you do.
it.
You do the 4 seasons.
Right, the
and
4 seasons, right.
Yeah.
Spend all my time like mocking it up. So just a little like heads up on from the landscape perspective is we have had more issues.
You really
modeling
don't want them to
structures.
see it.
No, you really don't. Like modeling structures, it works brilliantly.
Yeah.
Modeling living, growing, like plant material is not, they hadn't quite figured out that yet. But maybe the technology is,
Well, that's
you
why
know, it's gonna
landscape
show it.
drawings,
Yeah,
hand-drawn, are still gorgeous.
right, they're still gorgeous. So.
And I know we have probably a lot of designers in the room, so I do want to touch on one more point you made. And it really isn't technology related, but I do think it is so smart for designers to put in their line item budget to finish the project, because from a marketing standpoint and just portfolio standpoint, when you pay so much money to get these projects photographed and they're not done, it's pretty painful.
Well, it's the same with the landscape too.
Agreed. I
I
couldn't
want to
agree
get
more.
the beautiful picture of the house, but we didn't have the money to
Right.
deck
But
out
if,
the landscape.
yeah,
Here's our one piece of sod we put down.
yeah. Not winning any awards for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I just think you're smart to run a business like that, because it happens to everyone. I mean, you can't do anything about if they run out of money, but when you see the vision and it can't be complete, it's frustrating.
And we just kind of felt that over time, never did that in the years. I mean, I could guess, okay, it's going to cost so much to furnish it, and I still have a pretty good guess, but we do have a calculator that we work through, a good, better, best model, and that's how we come up with that price. But, you know, they usually get a pretty good hard number on the construction, but the interiors is huge, you know, and build this beautiful house
big.
and then you don't have anything in it and you got to wait another however long till you can furnish
Right.
it. But, and it's sometimes too, you know, I always present it and I say, okay, this is a launching pad here. What are your thoughts? And, you know, I would love for them to say, great, go. But a lot of times they're surprised, but once we get into it, we can talk through it, and once we get into renderings,
I
they'll
was
go.
going to say, and those 3D
Yeah, they
renderings
start
probably
to
really do help
yeah.
sell that
It also
vision.
helps them to prioritize, you know.
So when you're presenting that like install budget, do you start at the top and slowly work your way through, or do
No,
you
we
let
have it
them see the
broken
bottom
down.
line? Do you
No.
let them see the bottom line
No,
first?
no, it's just like 4 numbers. We break it down. We have our estimated design
She
piece.
doesn't give them the full number.
No.
Well, like with me, when I send a client an estimate, and the first thing they want to do is scroll to the bottom,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, it can't be," and it's like,
Oh,
"Okay,
well, it is there.
well, this is your
Yeah,
grading. Does that
it
make
is
sense?
there.
Here's your foundation. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?" So
This wall
like,
is very
tell me where we're wrong here,
Yeah.
you know, because a lot of times they just want to go to the bottom. Oh no, can't be right.
Yeah.
So
I do have it spelled out, like wallpaper, window treatments, furniture, you know, all the things. And then we have an installation cost and freight, you know.
Yeah.
We do break it down, but it's super helpful. It's been, I have had so many, I have a wonderful that I have so many repeat clients that, that I didn't do that before, and I do that now, and they're like, this is the best.
See,
You know,
so, okay,
you know, and then,
you've
you know, I
really
had one ask me yesterday,
transitioned.
where are we? I'm like, we're doing really good, you know, and,
You've transitioned into my next question,
oh, okay.
which is perfect. How do you think technology has advanced and benefited your client relationships and ultimately saved them time and money? So,
All of that. All of that. You know, doing so much designing up front that we give you that information rather than stringing them along. Okay,
Yeah.
now we got to do tile. Now we got to do faucets. Like we just do so much up front. I think it's a much more enjoyable experience for them. And then they can keep living their lives and traveling, doing all their things. But I think just pose that, say what.
no, just, I mean, you already, you know, how does technology, the advance of technology helped your client relationship?
Well, I remember a day, and I tell my girls this, Christy, we would go to Bryce to just look at the Vanguard catalog, you know? So now it's just amazing what
Yeah.
all we can do. And, but technology has changed the game, totally.
Frances, I want to pose the same question to you. How do you feel like technology has helped your client relationship and that design process back and forth and really showing them what can be done?
Well, certainly, you know, any type of video, any type of photograph, but something really, really basic is to be able to just email them a PDF and it's on their computer or whatever. You know, we're not constantly printing drawings all the time.
Yeah.
Because people don't necessarily want to look at that anymore. And we do, of course. I mean, I always have printed drawings. But it's crazy to me that I am constantly just emailing things. Just
And the
the
younger
basics.
generation,
Yeah.
they don't, like, I still like my notebook. They laugh at me, but I like
Same.
my notebook.
Yeah, I will
Same.
say, keep a
But they're
notebook.
like, Abby's like, Mom, it's all right here in this file. I'm like, I know, but I want my page to turn.
And I've
I
got
use
like-
both.
And I've got like 3 notebooks,
Yeah.
which is a whole nother problem. What about you, Evan? I know, because I have built a house in the past and done renovations. I feel like that lag time that you don't hear from or see it's just in a client's head, you're like, okay, well, there goes another day that I don't have an answer. So how has that all changed your relationship? Like that software you're talking about, I mean, because you built before all this too, so.
yeah, for me, it's transparency is for my clients, it could be 11 o'clock at night and they want to see all of their bills. I don't have to then
They're
go
not
send them.
texting you?
Well, they do, but we try to eliminate that as much as possible. And it's not that we don't want to see or talk to our clients, but at certain hours, you know, and at those hours that I'm working, they're probably working too.
Right.
So
That is the dance.
Which is a huge
Yeah.
industry-wide problem. Like they finally look at their phone at 6 and that's when they're calling you.
right, and so if they can log in and see, okay, here's every single bill, or here is the schedule for the rest of the build, or here's the pictures of what was accomplished this week. If they can get all that information without having to reach out to us at, you know, whatever time.
Well, it's about
it just-
training them a little bit too.
Well, you have to set the expectation.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think that's like with this technology, it's not just about here you go. It's this is how we do it. This is how this works. I will not answer this email at 12.
Now, they don't follow that,
Brantley.
but it, you know, we told you.
She's the worst. Well, you know, this is actually something you can talk. We can kind of end on this and then go to Q&A. You have 2 separate phones.
2 phones. The cocktail client. They come home in the afternoon and
So
have
true.
a cocktail at 6 o'clock and sit there and look at their landscape, and they call me like, all right, so what are we doing out here? And I'm like, I'm having a cocktail on my patio too. Like, I don't want to talk about what we're doing on your patio. Or like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. And so the best thing I did, and it drives you know, Kendall and I work together, but she's also one of my best friends. It drives her crazy. She never knows what number to call me on, but I love it because there is one number that only friends and family have and one number that clients have. And it goes off at 7 p.m. and it goes off on the weekends. Now, the anxiety on Monday morning is enough to wreck me, but it's
worth
off
the call.
and I've had a weekend, you
But
know.
it's something to think about if you have
about.
trouble
Right.
with that work-life balance of the constant
It's constant,
communication.
right. And, you know, and I think y'all have all brought up a good point of like willingness to evolve. I got off the phone with my assistant this morning and she went through all these new ways that we can automate design proposals and documents, and it links to QuickBooks and it throws it in Airtable, and you know, and it's overwhelming for those of us who've had to kind of evolve with all of this technology. But the good news is there are people out there that this is what they do.
Yeah.
And so
Get help.
Yeah, I mean, it's get help.
hesitate
Don't
to
think you
get
can do
help.
it all, because she was talking about Zapier to automate stuff, and I sat down and I was like, I can do this like 3 weeks ago. 10 minutes later, I was like, no, thank you. Like somebody else can do this.
I think
there are other professionals.
there's a happy
yes.
medium on how much to bring in at a time. And
Right.
what works for your business.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So,
yeah, I guess questions. Yeah, we would love to take any questions. Anybody has any?
Nothing.
No.
Really?
See,
Covered it
y'all
all.
just covered
Here we
it
go.
all.
There we go.
Of course, the corner.
got
I can
one.
get to you. Hold on.
Running it high.
Okay.
Make Katie run.
Hey, so I think and you guys touched on it right at the end, I think one of the things that technology, I'm an architect and I have a small business, makes challenging for me, and you mentioned at the end, is this myth of availability, of constant availability. And oh my gosh, this is my problem, and I don't care this 11 o'clock at night, because we have to remember we are in a service industry. And even though we may have multiple projects, some of us more than others, this is a project that someone is doing. They're spending an inordinate amount of money doing it, and it is their number one priority.
Yeah. Right.
So how do you guys manage? And you all have bigger firms than I do, but it's a fine balance between setting those boundaries, right?
Right.
Because you do have to remember it is their number one priority, and
Right.
you can't say to them, "You're not my number one priority," but
I also
they
think,
aren't.
Yeah, and I'll let them take this too, but I just work with so many of you all. I think you can flip the script and be like, this is their number one stressor. That is why they're calling me. That is why my phone's off. And this isn't going to be solved at 12 p.m. tonight. So I think you have to put your mental health first. That's my 2 cents on
I
it.
think it's all about expectations.
I'll put something else. We did, when we are signed on to a project, we do like a welcome packet. And
that
all
they
that tells
they
you-
may or may not read.
Well, but it does say, you know, this is how we communicate, and, you know, these are some times, or you can send an email. I mean, we do try to do that. But then the other thing, and I know Brantley, it doesn't always work this way, but myself,
I break my own rule.
over communicate
Right.
with them,
Agreed.
they won't be asking
It's
you,
almost
hey,
like you've
did
stirred
you
the
get,
pot.
Yeah.
From the get-go, if
Right.
you answer that first call,
You're done.
yeah, you've said it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I get that, but I like that you kind of set up.
Right.
yeah.
And I think it goes back to managing expectations.
You have to set the
It's
expectations.
a lot better than it used to be for me too.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I'll
that
take
come
the
with
7 a.m.
experience?
call. That's fine. I'll do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure he would take a 6 a.m.
And I
call.
do
Yeah.
think for us,
Early.
I have seen a shift in ours with our processes being so streamlined that they know what's been done and what has been decided on, and they've kind of moved on. So I have definitely seen a change in,
And it goes back to the
All-
more information up front.
yeah,
all the planning
decisions
up
have
front.
been made, and then we've communicated, and then I
I hear
try,
you.
I'm not the best on Friday emails, but Abby will say, did you get those out?
Yeah.
But she's really good too about, will send me some bullet points, just a reminder, and I'll send all the clients an email, not every Friday, but pretty regularly. If I haven't talked to them already, this is what we've been working on this week. with
Yeah,
you.
And
we try
that
to do
goes
a
back to
weekly
being
report.
proactive.
Yeah.
Well, I had a old landscape contractor that I admire and have looked up to for years, and the best piece of advice he ever gave me was always be on the offense. You don't ever want to
Totally.
be called in the defense. And, you know, you being a team player, and I know nothing about sports. Went to Auburn. I'm the worst Auburn fan. They can all attest to that. But being team players, communicating, and always being on the offense. And that has been the most.
And always picking up the phone when you can
Exactly.
in your office hours.
Right. Yeah.
So I try and set that expectation of like calls and texts, these are the hours. To me, you can send an email at any time of the day.
Totally.
Don't care. And we try and do a weekly report that sends out through the software where we do the daily logs and, hey, this is what we've done this week. This is our look ahead. You know, these are any current pain points or current answers or just, again, try and be on the offense. That way, when they come back to you with a question, it's not 10 questions, it's maybe
Right.
just one.
Right.
It doesn't catch you by surprise.
Well, they
Anyone
will definitely throw
else?
something in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
good job.